You're listening to an audio article by the Common Constitutionalist. Today's article is entitled, Don't Cave on the Constitution, the Beginning of the End of the Second Amendment, by me, Brent Smith, the Common Constitutionalist. I agree with the President on most things, but I can't on this. We've been hearing ad nauseum that polling suggests that the public supports universal background checks and greater gun restrictions, and we've not only been hearing this from Democrats, but also from Republicans. So I guess we've given up on protection and defense of the Constitution and will be governing by the whims of the people and politicians. It reminds me of what the father of modern progressive movement, President Woodrow Wilson, said. I hate that guy. Quote, the Constitution was founded on the law of gravitation. The government was to exist and move by virtue of the efficacy of checks and balances. The trouble with the theory is that government is not a machine but a living thing. No living thing can have its organs offset against each other as checks and live, unquote. This was the beginning of the living, breathing Constitution. That musty old document was fine for its day, but it should not have been built on immovable bedrock. Instead, it should be built on sand so it may move and shift with the changing times. President Trump and the Republicans have expressed openness to a federal red flag law and for, quote-unquote, meaningful background checks. Quote, frankly, we need intelligent background checks, unquote, Trump told reporters Friday. He added, quote, on background checks, we have tremendous support for really common sense, sensible, important background checks, unquote. Now, what all this means isn't exactly clear yet. What is clear from public opinion polling is that Americans believe gun violence is a problem and they support more gun restrictions. However, last I checked, neither the President nor the Congress took an oath to govern by public opinion. Oh, I'm sure a lot of them would love nothing more, but that's not their job. As Glenn Beck correctly stated recently, if the Republicans and the presidents cave and adopt particularly a federal red flag law, it will hail the beginning of the end of the Second Amendment. And lest you think, as maybe a hater of the Second Amendment, that this isn't a problem, once they are done with this amendment, it will be on to the next one, perhaps one you do care about. They won't stop, I guarantee it. Red flag laws enable authorities to confiscate someone's weapons without the burden of due process. You know, due process, the underpinning of our entire system of justice. As Beck said, it's the little thing that separates us from other countries who just, quote, kick down the doors in the middle of the night, unquote. In fact, it's worse than just having the right to take away your gun. A red flag law actually gives authorities the right to take away your rights. And if that's not anti-constitutional, I don't know what is. Oh, sure, it'll be advertised as something other than what it is. President Trump at least appears to have developed the attitude of shoot first and ask questions later. He said he likes due process, but, quote, take the guns first, due process second. I like taking the guns early, unquote. Not a great answer, Mr. President. Regardless of the reason, the minute you start taking guns away before due process, you've trampled on the citizens' rights and the Constitution. Representative Dan Crenshaw, a new hero of the right for sure, got pilloried recently for coming out in support of some sort of red flag law, but with many more safeguards in it to make sure the law cannot be abused. After seeing his post, I agree with virtually everything he had to say, and in a vacuum, all he says makes perfect sense. But we're not in a vacuum, and what Crenshaw and any of these otherwise intelligent constitutional reps don't seem to be considering is the framework argument of the progressives. If you give even an inch to progressives, they will never stop until they get their mile. What we conservatives must come to grips with is that all the gun control lobby wants is an opening. Just get a law on the books, any law. Make it as restrictive as you want. They don't care, for they know that it can and will be changed down the road. And every time it's changed, we'll lose a little more of our rights to keep and bear arms until there are none left. And no one has even mentioned how much it's likely to cost a citizen in court, lawyers' fees and lost wages, to even get back his guns after they've been confiscated. Thank you for listening.